In 2024, I read 100 books. Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Let me give you a quick intro though. I feel after school and college, we really don't get enough creative outlets. And especially after pandemic for me, I started working remote, not meeting people and not doing anything extracurricular. It was really frustrating. So in 2023, I started reading again, picked up an old hobby and read around 30 books. And then last year, I reached my goal of reading 100 books. Is this channel going to be just book videos? I am not sure. Lately, I've been really interested in Formula One racing thanks to my husband and getting really obsessed and educated. So I'm actually looking forward to creating more content about F1 when I learn enough of it and when the 25 season starts. So look out for that. And maybe me navigating my late 20s and entering into my 30s. You might see some of those too. So in today's video, I'm not gonna rank my books from best to worst or give them star ratings. I don't think I always stay consistent with my ratings. It changes over time. So in today's video, I am gonna recommend some of these books that stayed with me. I remember the story throughout the year. Not necessarily the best pieces of literature, but for some reason, these stories were really gripping and intriguing. And if you ever felt that you never found an interesting story or books are boring, you might find a good one here. Okay, let's start. My first one is from the author Frederick Bachman, Anxious People. Now, if you're intimidated by big books, you can start with a novella from him. It is The Answer Is No. Now, Frederick Bachman writes very interesting premises, although they are usually boring settings. In Anxious People, it is about a common man or woman who turns into a robber and ends up robbing or attempting to rob a cashless bank. And that ends up being a hostage situation involving a lot of weird people. And turns out they all have a connecting story. There are a lot of call-outs on different social constructs, and it is actually a show on Netflix now. So, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Next suggestion is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. Now, this created a lot of buzz the year before and last year. This is about a famous author who chokes on a pancake and dies. And while she meets her funny demise, there is another fellow colleague who was with her who finds a partially completed manuscript and steals it and edits it and publishes the book as her own. And everything else that she has to do in order to maintain her lie, and the most surprising and weird way the book ends. It talks a lot about the publishing industry, and there's a lot of call out and what happens in real life. So it did receive a lot of criticism for that, but I did keep thinking about this book a lot. That is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. Next, I have an interesting one. Okay, this is the first paranormal genre this author has written. By Ali Hazelwood, we have the book Bride. Now, this is a vampire and a werewolf romance. It's the typical Twilight theme. So, this is about Misery Lark, who is the daughter of a very powerful vampire, who is forced into an arranged marriage with the head of the pack, Alpha. His name is Lo Morland. And it's a romance story, but in a paranormal setting. We could have gone without the biologics of a vampire. Oh my god. Yeah, I still remember that. So, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Weird, but intriguing. Next up, I have Sarah A. Parker's When the Moon Hatched. Wow, this was definitely a magical book. Imagine the anime, Dragon Ball Z, and you see all those balls in it, the bright orange ones. So in this world, in this magical world, there are wyverns and dragons, and when these dragons die, they actually crystallize and solidify in the sky as moons, like crystal balls. And if something weird happens with the magic system, a moon falls. So that's a premise. Just imagine this magical backdrop. Wherever you go, there are purple skies and there are dragon moons scattered across the sky. And there is a very good enemies to lovers trope here. And I would say go into this book blind. It is not gonna disappoint you. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. The reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. Now, if you have seen the Netflix show A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was also a Holly Jackson book series, if you like the vibe, you're in for a treat. Now, the reappearance of Rachel Price, as the name suggests, Rachel Price has gone missing 18 years ago, and the only witness to her missing was her, I think, 2-year-old daughter. And the daughter potentially would have seen what happened to mother, but doesn't remember. And 18 years later, the daughter is involved in some production coming and creating a documentary about the mother's missing. And during the documentary filming, the mother returns. And her story of missing is sketchy, and everyone is doubtful about where she was all this year. And this young lady, set out to find what happened to her mother. Is this her real mother? And what a twist is it at the end. Holly Jackson is never going to disappoint you there. You're not going to guess it because it was truly outlandish that what happened. So go read The Reappearance of Rachel Price if you're into something like that. Next, I have a series to recommend. It is the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts. It's not a completed series, so if you're setting out to start this, you would get the final book in 2025, I think April. And I cannot talk about the last two. I can give you a hint on what happens in Powerless. If you are a fan of Hunger Games and you love trials and this near-death experiences that the characters would have to go through on a day-to-day life, then this would be your taste. So in Powerless, there are ordinaries and elites in a magical land, and our male main character is the enforcer of the king and also the prince, who is set out to hunt and kill the ordinaries. Ordinaries are the ones without magical powers, and elites are the ones with them. And our female main character, Payden, is impersonating as elite and living in there. So it is a love story between an enforcer and the person he's hunting to kill. So if you're interested in that sort of a cat and mouse chase set in this world with magical powers of Leah, then you are in for a treat. And there is this one side character who I loved, had a very sad ending, and I really cried. So Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Next, I have a very fresh book, I would say. It's called Evenings and Weekends. It's by Orson McKenna. This book was such a fresh outlook towards modern relationships, and I think it's one of the best books that I've seen. Open relationships and polygamy that is currently very, I would say, common with the generation being depicted, and the problems of those relationships. It is about 3 people who are some or the other way related to each other, and 2 days from their life on very hot summer days in London. The summer in London itself is a character in this book. I would say the minute details in which he explains the climate and the weather changes, it actually makes you just, uncomfortable actually seeing the characters suffer in the sun. There is also a weird whale, actually like a blue whale, which is stuck in the Thames River of London, who also plays a character in this book. So take it what you will from what I have said. I know it's very vague, but that's the best way of explaining it. There is no defined plot to the book, but If you're someone who's interested in studying screenplay and you want to learn how to depict characters, this is, yeah, I know it's a very specific recommendation, but this book would do great for you. That is Evenings and Weekends by Austin McKenna. And finally, I cannot stop talking about this book. It is The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. So this is part science fiction, part historical fiction, part romance. So the British government has invented and administered standardized time travel in sort of way, and they have like a ministry and a committee, and there are employees and managers in this committee, and one of their programs were to bring great freedom fighters and leaders from the past and pick them from their timeline before they die and place them in 21st century. And you assign an employee to each of these great leaders and expect them to adapt to the 21st century. It does explain the science of bringing a person from the past, how the physics of it should work. They also explain how the psychology of the person that they brought back works. All in all, the author has done a brilliant job taking such an interesting premise and a setting and giving a philosophical twist to it. I would really, really recommend you to pick up The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. Yeah, those are some of my very specific recommendations in books. Let me know if you have read any of those or if you have any recommendations for me. So see you on the next video.